Shalom, my name is Rachel Friedman. I'm Associate Dean and Chair of Tanakh at Drisha Institute for Jewish Education, and it is a great pleasure to share with you today some thoughts on Parashat Shemot. When we study a passage in the Bible, it's helpful to identify key words or phrases that are repeated throughout that passage. This might help us understand the underlying message of a section of the Torah. The root Yud Dalet Ayin, Yadoa, or to know, appears about 20 times in the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, in the Exodus story. And in each case, it appears at a crucial juncture in the context of the narrative. We conventionally translate Yadoa as either intellectual awareness or experience. What I want to explore with you this morning is what I believe is the special significance of the word Yadoa in this week's Torah portion. The first place that Yadoa appears in the Exodus story is Perek Aleph Pasuk Chet of Sefer Shemot. Shemot, Exodus 1:8 reads, Vayakol melech chadash al Mitzrayim, asher lo yada et Yosef. A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. Now, close readers as they were, the sages of the Midrash were actually troubled by the language of this seemingly simple verse. First of all, they wondered why the text never told us that the old king died, only that a new king arose. And in this connection, the first century Babylonian Amoraim, Rav and Shmuel, did not even agree that a new pharaoh necessarily took over. Rav believed that a new king took the throne, but Shmuel suggested that it was the same old king, but the king instituted new decrees against the Hebrew people, Nitchatshu Gzerotav. The Midrash plays out the logical conclusions of each of these views of Rav and Shmuel for the remaining language of the verse. The verse ends, Asher lo yada et Yosef. A new king arose who did not know Joseph. If the king was new, then it's possible that he actually did not know Yosef. But if it was the same old king, then he knew Joseph. But the problem was, asa atzmo ke'ilu lo yida'o. He acted as if he did not know Joseph. The Babylonian Amorah Rav Avin expands on this idea. Rav Avin poses a rhetorical question. Whether the Pharaoh was new or old, is it possible that he did not know of Yosef? V'chilo haya makir et Yosef? After all, how could he not have known of Joseph? Joseph was legendary in Egypt for saving the population from starvation. The true message of our verse, then, is not about whether Paro actually met and shook hands with Yosef. Rather, I think it's an observation about Pharaoh's character. Asher lo yada et Yosef does not mean that Pharaoh did not know Joseph personally, but rather that Pharaoh refused to acknowledge the good that Joseph did for the Egyptian nation. The meaning of the root Yadoa appears to take on a new level of meaning in the story of the Exodus from Egypt. It's not just about knowledge, but about how one acts in response to that knowledge. It's not just about intellectual cognition, but also about acknowledgement. The truth is, the theme of acknowledgement is striking throughout the story of the Exodus. Towards the end of Parashat Shemot, in Perek Hey, Pasuk Bet, that's Exodus 5:2, Paro refuses to allow the slaves of Yisrael, the Israelite slaves, to worship their God in the wilderness. And he expresses his disapproval with the use of our key word. Paro says, Vayomer Paro, Mi Hashem asher eshma bekolo lishalach et Yisrael, lo yadati et Hashem, v'gam et Yisrael lo ashaleach. Paro states, who is the Lord that I should listen to him and send the Israelites out of Egypt? I do not know the Lord, and I will not send the Israelites out. Lo yadati et Hashem v'gam et Yisrael lo ashaleach. Just as Pharaoh does not acknowledge the good that Yosef did for Egypt, so too Pharaoh does not acknowledge the God of Yosef, the God of the nation of Israel. Therefore, he refuses to accord to them the right of religious worship. To conclude then, the book of Shemot, the story of the Exodus, is not merely about knowledge. Rather, it's about the consequence of knowledge. It's about how we act with regard to that which we know. The Pharaoh of the oppression in Egypt refused to acknowledge Joseph and his God. Vayakan melech chadash al Mitzrayim asher lo yada et Yosef. Lo yadati et Hashem, v'gam et Yisrael lo ashaleach. But in this very same era, the nation of Israel was born, a nation born of acknowledgement, of the gratitude and appreciation for our salvation, and a commitment to live a life of sanctity and morality. Shabbat Shalom.